for this course for a while. And in particular, I think this class is going to be even better than it would be in person because of the guest speakers that we're going to be able to have. So I know I've been in contact with Obie before, and when he's like back in California to come by, but I always feel bad because I don't have money to give people to come speak. But now we're on Zoom anyways, and so we can have people like Obie, who is a wrongfully convicted man who can come in on our first day of class. I wanted to just start off strong and have someone talk to you that's been through this. He's going to tell you his story. I told him it's the first day of class, so you guys don't really know much about what's going on in the class yet, other than, you know, what you might have seen in the media, on movies or TV shows that you watched about wrongful conviction. But this is a man that was wrongfully convicted. He's been doing excellent work in the state of California, getting laws passed to help exonerees after they get out. I'm going to hopefully have him come back at the end when we talk about, well, what happens when they get out? What do they have to deal with? Do they get money? He's fortunate or not fortunate that he was able to have a civil lawsuit and win. So he was able to be compensated that way, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. But as I said before, we have a guest speaker. He is here to speak to us today, and I'm going to hand it over to Obie right now.
Thank you. And good morning to everybody. And can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Nice. That's great. Well, it's great. And to be able to be part of this, I'm really excited about not only today's opportunity, but also the opportunity, in other words, that was extended for it to come back later in the year to talk to you guys a little bit about sort of kind of what happens afterwards. But I'll talk to you a little bit about that today, but not so much. But mainly I'll talk to you about, you know, the causes of wrongful convictions, some of the consequences that sort of kind of created the situation for those things to be possible, and also specifically and particularly what happened to me. And so back in 1995, I was framed and I was put in prison for a murder and 3 attempted murders with 3 attempted robberies with special circumstances. That gave me the term after convictions of life without the possibility of parole plus 50 years. My feet touched the penitentiary grounds in January 1996. I was 19 years old. It was guys and gals that had already been there as long as I was on this earth. And I had never been to the youth authority. I had never been to camp. I had never been to prison. I've never been to none of those settings. I had been in and out of juvenile hall. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I had a rough upcoming. I grew up back in the 80s in Los Angeles. And if you guys and gals heard anything about Los Angeles in the 80s, you can imagine sort of the difficultness and sort of the environment. It was really, really heavy with drugs, violence, poor education systems, really low jobs everywhere. And there was a lot of individuals, a lot of gang activity that was going on in the 80s and the 90s. And I had to grow up in that environment and sort of kind of figure a way out to maneuver without all of the best tools in hand to do so. Consequently, that's where my false imprisonment happened, was in Los Angeles. And again, like I said, just getting back to sort of kind of my convictions. So they had, it was a murder that happened on 49th and Figueroa. I don't know if any of you guys or gals been down there, but it's a brothel. Well, it used to be a brothel right there on 49th and Figueroa. Now, I see you over there shaking your head, Maggie. I don't know if you've been over there to that spot, but it's a really dangerous area, and it was even more dangerous back then. Back then, it was a brothel that was being ran by the name of John Jones. And so this crime happened outside of the brothel where these guys was going by. He was Hispanic guys, and they had seen this one prostitute that one of the Hispanic guys had been familiar with before, and told his friends, "Hey, that's my chica right there, pull over." And so they pull over, they're talking, the young men get out of the car. So one of them is out of the car and there's two other ones in the car, two of them as friends. And out of nowhere, things begin to start to unfold. So during the trial, the prosecutor represented some audio tapes that they had pulled from the investigation, and also some videotapes. But the videotapes and the audio tapes, only thing you hear is sound. And you see the guy initially come up to the door, knock on the door, asking for his friend. They say, hey, look, she's busy, go away. The guy walks away from the door. Then you hear all of the commotion going on outside of the frame of the video. And then you hear shots start ringing out. Boom, boom, boom. A lot of shots. I think they caught up to like 14 shots that had rung out. But there was no witnesses on the scene. You had bypassing cars that was going by. When the detectives got to the scene of the crime, two young men in the car had been shot up pretty bad. The one young man that was out of the car, he had gotten shot one time from an upwards to downwards angle in more than a 40-degree angle with a single gunshot wound to the back that came out of his left side, and he died right there on the scene. And the other two guys fled off and they went home. I mean, they didn't go home, but they went to their house where medical treatment came and sort of helped them out, took them to the hospital and all of this. And so, again, just getting back to the fact, again, they had those victims/witnesses, but then no actual witness on the scene until the manager, what they called this guy, and I'll get to that point later. The manager of the building that sat there on the corner on 49th Street of this brothel, the prosecutors called him a manager of an apartment building. Well, this guy, John Jones, he testifies. He originally makes a police statement saying, hey, look, I seen everything. I seen these guys cross the street from the auto body shop. They approached the guys on the corner, and then it all went down. That's what he told the cops. That was his original statement when the cops convinced him, because they came to the scene, they didn't find nobody. And then he says, hey, they went that way. So they called him, they convinced him to come down there, talk with him, and he gave him that statement. They said to him, hey, look, if you mind, can you come down to the station, or can we come back out and get a more complete statement from you? And he says, sure. This time, his statement is totally different from he didn't see anything. He only seen him at the scene. That was his wife at internet.
Obie, I think your internet's
what's going on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Had the video.
I froze. I don't froze.
Happened.
Yeah, we can't hear.
I know. I think.
No.
Obie?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Goodness
I can hear you now.
Now you can hear me. Sorry, I'm having issues with my
It's
internet
okay now.
out here.
Yeah.
And I'm in St. Louis, so I'm in the middle. I don't know what's going on with the internet. It's bad though right now. It's a lot of wind outside. But what I was saying was that just basically they had brought the prosecutors called this guy who wasn't a witness. He wasn't a witness. He was actually the pimp of the brothel that had ran the brothel, that had been, raided by Vice several different times looking for minors and prostitutes. And he had been working with the Los Angeles Police Department for multiple years. And we ended up finding this information out during the course of my exoneration. But at the point of my investigation of my original trial, none of this information was there. The prosecutors stood on their ground. No, he's a witness. He's not an informant. He's never done all of this. He's just a witness to a crime. And he challenged my then public defender to, where's the information to show that he's an informant, that this is happening. And meanwhile, he knew that they had took the information and hid it. And so it was no way for the prosecutors to be able to come up with that information. I mean, my defense attorney. Ultimately, one of the victims/witnesses who had came to trial, he had originally had his preliminary hearing. Excuse me, let me back up a bit. He came to a prelim first, and he's a Hispanic guy. He spoke very little English, and he wasn't able to identify myself or my co-defendant. However, he told the court that he said, well, he was only saying that I looked like the guy, not that I was the guy, and that it was only through his dreams that he can identify me now in court. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, this can't be true.
Yeah.
And so they then called their star witness, which was the pimp of the brothel, on the stand. And the lawyers challenged him in respect to his first statement that he made to the police, saying that, hey, look, you seen what happened. You seen the guys come. What happened? Like, what happened now that it happened, but you only this? He said, well, his statement is in writing, in the court's documents, public record. His testimony to the court and the judge was this. Well, it was pretty dark out there. I couldn't really see. The fourth guy could have been a dog. And I'm like, no way I'm finna be bound over the trial. Like, I just knew that I was finna go home, but that just didn't happen. The prosecutors, the judge, the detectives that was involved, even my defense attorney, I found out later during the course of my exoneration, and forgive me, because I get kind of, it still sits on me, so I get kind of, emotional. I cry like a big old softie, so forgive me if you see tears. But I found out during the course of my exoneration that even my public defender thought I did it, because I was telling him to go talk to this person, to look at this, look at the trajectory. I was telling him to look at all of the stuff that was there so that he can, defend me. And, my new attorneys in the Innocent Project, who reinvestigated my case, when they went back out to talk to him about his investigation in respect to what he did for my case, and he told them, well, he just didn't have the practice or the habit of knocking on the same doors that the police had already knocked on. And so he didn't see no reason to go back to go knock on those doors. And nor did he see a reason to question the people that the police had already questioned. And so he didn't do no investigation. And when was questioned as to why not, he said, well, he thought that maybe I had something to do with it because I was telling him about to look at the trajectory of the bullet. I was telling him about to talk to this person, to look at this and to look at that. And so he took all of those things, me trying to help myself, and he used it against me. He used those things against me.
Okay.
And so at the age of 18 and a half, going on 19, in November of 1995, the court came back and convicted me of a murder and 2 attempted murders and 3 attempted robberies. And they sent me to prison. And I mean, I know that I was innocent. I knew that I didn't have anything to do with it. I knew that I wasn't there. But there I was now sitting in the penitentiary with no help. So, you don't have, once you get done with your trial in the appellate court on the first level, do your case, you have no help. You have no help with investigating your claims on what you claiming it for as your innocence and none of that stuff. And I'm 19 years old. I didn't go to law school. I didn't know the law. I didn't know, they wasn't teaching me this in junior high or in high school. I didn't know none of what to go look for, how to find a way, in other words, to prove that I was innocent just by what I had in my hands. I didn't know. And so I sat there for 17 years. And before the Northern California Innocent Project and Loyola Marymount Project for the Innocent took my case and procured my freedom in November in 2011 of October. And I've been home now since then. And as we alluded to earlier, I've been active in that restorative justice arena, in that advocacy arena. I always tell people that, I would have never in my entire life thought of being an advocate for anything. I grew up in Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles. I was in gangs. I was a separator. I wasn't with bringing people together. I was, making sure the dude over here, where you keep you away from me. Where you from? I didn't want to make sure they wasn't trying. That was my 14, 13, and 12. That was my 11. That was my 15. That was my growing up. But then, and now, suffering through all of this and still suffering. To this day, 10 years after my exoneration, I'm still suffering. I suffer tremendously from prison traumatic stress that has been compounded or set on top of my post-traumatic stress. Because my post-traumatic stress was all of the shootings I seen in my neighborhood, all of the overdose people I watched on the streets, all of the stuff that happened at school, then when I was going to school. So I had to, my mom, all of that stuff that was going on with my family. I've already had trauma in my life. But this right here created a situation where it birthed an advocate out of me. It birthed someone who understands and realizes and appreciates help helps help. And that hurt hurts hurt. And that it was help that helped me, that saved me. I was supposed to die in prison. I had life without the possibility of parole. That was never supposed to come home. For all intents and purposes, I'm supposed to be dead. And so, that's because after 17 years of sitting in prison on a level 4 yard maximum prison in California, that could have happened at any one of those days. It happens. I've watched a young man during the course of a riot at Corcoran State Prison lose his life. To the guards who shot him. You have to somehow or another find the vehicle. I'm having interruptions.
Yeah, he just froze for a second. I think you're good.
Yeah, for a second.
I just want to say,
but you have to find a vehicle that would lead you to your completion and not no one else's. Lead you to your path, what you're going to do. And for me, advocacy and helping individuals that have been wronged, not only by the system, by being put in there falsely, but other individuals who have been put in jail for crimes for overextended period of times, or just because, or even minors who got put in prison at 16, 15, who had to go to prison or go to jail. And so I just work with and I help returning citizens, because there is no one disposable. There is no disposable people. In prison is that. Prison is a disposable box. It's like a trash can. It's what you do when you have nothing, when you can't figure nothing else out to do with the people, you throw them into prison. When you can't figure out no mental health for them, you throw them into these mental health boxes. When you can't find no place, in other words, to help them to get whatever issues that's going on, to help them be better, prosperous, and educated, then you throw them into prison. And you put a bar around them, and you say it's nothing that you can do for them. And if that's not enough, then they go and they even frame people like they did me, like they did over 200 to 600 people in California. Over 2,000, over close to 3,000 people around the United States. It's a young lady right now in California by the name of Janet Dixon. She had just got exonerated after 40 years.
Wow.
40 years.
Wow.
She's home now, and she just came home about 3 months ago now, after 40 years. And so they don't only do it to men, but they do it also to women. And like I always say, excuse me, is that it can happen to you. Is that we go to school, that you go to school every day, you get your education, and I'm almost certain to you that in school, out of school, somebody told you you look like somebody else. Man, you remind me of somebody. Like Eli. You remind me of Limp Bizkit. When I see Eli, I remember Limp Bizkit. I mean, the hair, the braids, you know what I mean? And you familiar with him, I'm like, man. And so it's those sort of type of things there that individuals get put in prison for because they look like someone else. So they get mistakenly identified. And mistaken identification is one of the leading causes of wrongful convictions because you look like someone else. And so you have that as a leading cause of wrongful convictions. Also, false confessions is another cause of wrongful convictions, where they take individuals who did not commit the crime and they put pressure on those individuals in these interrogation rooms and give them information and fear and make them scared of what could be and all of these things. And they confess the crimes in which they didn't commit. You have the Central Park 5 as an example of that. 5 kids who was put in prison because of false confessions, because the police pressured them to make statements to fit their narrative. And when the police have to create a narrative, you have to understand they do not have facts. Because the facts makes the narrative. They do not have to make one for the facts. And so be mindful of that. The venture that you young ladies and men are on is a magnificent one. I tell students all of the time this, and I spoke at almost every university in the state of California. I speak outside of the state of California. I speak at the Capitol. And I spoke in Washington at the Congressional Black Caucus. I've done all sort of Zooms and to even high school students. It was a high school student who was an expert in my case, Brooke Levin. She was a math expert. She was great in math. She went to Harvard Westlake, and Miss Levinson knew her, and you're my expert mathematician. She brought her into court. She testified to all of the math, and here I am. And that helped. And so I say that because I want you to know that the courses that you're taking, and regardless of prosecutor or defense of the legal field in which you go into, and or whether it's in immigration, or whether it's in civil rights, whatever it's in, that you guys and gals are the opportunity to individuals like me. I prayed every night for 17 years for somebody to help me. And it was actually what happened was it was this 12-year-old girl by the name of Paige K. who wasn't even going to school, that the Creator put a blessing on her heart to go to school. And when she went to school, she, at the age of 21, 22 years old, 23 years old, became a lawyer out there in Northern California, working with LPI, NPI, NCIP, and procured 3 exonerations in 1 year.
Wow.
3. Myself, Frankie Carrillo, and also Maurice Carwell.
Mm-hmm.
3.
We're going to have Paige later in the semester. She agreed to come. So we're going to hear from his lawyer. She's a wonderful person.
Yes, she is. And she's went on to exonerate multiple. This one young lady, multiple other individuals. And so, and again, that ambition started off with her so long ago with an idea that she had for herself, that she listened to her parents and she took in consideration, but she knew what she wanted to do with her life, and she did that just as well as what you guys and girls are doing today. You're taking advantage of that, what you want to do for your life, and to do something greater for someone else later. And I can guarantee you this, that they definitely, right to this day, I get calls all of the time about help. I need some help. Who can help me? Do you know someone that you can connect us with? I have a brother, a sister, my mom, my dad. They're in prison for something they didn't do. And I tell them, these projects are out there, and they are working with these students in universities, and they're there to help them. So, and I appreciate you. So I say that to say this is that continue this year throughout this semester, not only with the excitement and ambitions that not only you're doing something magnificent, great for yourself, but how when that vessel is filled, that what happens with all vessels when they fill, it spills over. And that spillover effect affects not only myself, but other individuals that are like me. So just keep up the great work.
Do we have any
right.
questions for Obie? I'm sure they've never talked to somebody that's been wrongfully convicted before.
And feel free, you can ask any question that comes to mind. It doesn't matter.
I have a question. Are you still undergoing therapy for your PTSD?
Good question. So I've never gotten therapy.
Why?
Yeah, I've never. That's like, I don't know, the work that I've been doing has been therapeutic for me. I tried one therapist. I came home and it just wasn't right. He wasn't a right fit, and I don't want to hit him off on someone like that's the whole environment. But it was just that it just didn't work out well for me then, and so I just haven't tried it.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Hey, Obie. Hey,
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, good, and you? It's my first time actually talking somebody, wrongfully convicted. Do you still have those nightmares with you? Those days you and still.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, y'all, if my wife wasn't busy with my son right now, she'd probably be the first to tell you. She's recorded me in the night as I slept because she says I'll be fighting her.
Yeah.
I do things in the night, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm asleep. I don't know what's going on. But and that's because again, so I go through those things, and I don't know so I'll turn this a little bit. Oh my goodness, can you guys see that?
Yeah,
Wow.
Those boxes over there in the corner?
Yeah.
That's my life.
Wow.
That's my life. That's all of what they did to me right there. That's what I had to carry around with me for 17 years. That's what I walked out of the door with. That's all I had. And so yes, I still go through not only nightmares, but I still suffer from, I put it this way, that it's really difficult after 17 years for me to have that man to woman conversation versus man to man conversation. Because for 17 years, I just had man to man control and dominance in type of conversation. And then transitioning out here, coming home, it's been a constant for me to beat that back, where I'm not so in my conversations. My wife said, man, you can't talk like that. You talk aggressive. You talk this way. You need to this. And she's like, well, I don't know no other way to talk. I can't. I'm always defending myself in my conversations because. And so those things have still stuck with me this day.
Video froze again, but I think we still hear you. How about What about your hat? You want to tell us about that?
Yes. So I didn't want to spoil that part, but I guess I can give you a little bit of it. So maybe back in 2012, 2013, I had a chance to go to the state capitol to speak on prosecutorial misconduct. Assemblywoman Patty Lopez was representing the bill to hold prosecutors accountable, and Ignacio Hernandez from the Hernandez Strategy Group had reached out to me about possibly coming and telling my story to the assembly individuals and legislators about how the prosecutors did me in my case. And it was there that I had got the bug. I got kind of the bug of being at liking and sort of kind of communicating that, and not only communicating my story to them, but seeing the result, the effect of it, and how it helped other individuals. And so I went to a conference. Every year, the Innocent Projects have a national conference for all the exonerees all over the United States, and we all come together in one particular state or another. And we were having a conversation about different things, issues, policies that could possibly be worked on in different states and so forth. And it was there that Barry Scheck from the New York Innocent Project had, what about the exonerees in Texas? And he had, are they going through some of the things that exonerees are going through in New Orleans or in California? And I made the statement, I'm like, well, no, we're not these separate kind of individuals or group of people. We are one. We are an exonerated nation that has been affected by the same system in the same manners: prosecutorial misconduct, ineffective assistance counsel, overreaching detectives, and so forth and so on. And so we are one. And I then began to start advocating an exonerated nation. And anytime you plant a seed, the inevitability of it will grow. And it is up to you to nourish it after it begins to start growing. And so it grew to become a national nonprofit, which we help guys and gals around the United States with reentry services. So we provide help with housing. We also provide help with leadership development. We also we have a holistic healing program to help with our prison traumatic stress. And we also have community building, and we do work in policy.
Well, let's take a step back actually and tell them what exonerees get when they get out of prison. Day one, what do you get?
Well, let me see. I don't want to spoil it. Let me see. Am I saying her name right? Julia? Am I saying her name right? I want to say it's Julia. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's Julia.
Julia. I thought so. It's spelled different. I like it. What do you think? I mean, what do you think I got when I walked out of the door? Okay.
Probably.
Okay. What about you, Ryan? What you think I got, Ryan?
I'll make a guess. You were paid by the government.
I hope
You
you
get
were.
some money.
How much do you think he got if he was paid by the government?
It depends it depends on the years he served on prison.
17 years.
That was my question. Did you get any help finding a job or anything like that?
All right. So no, I didn't get nothing. I didn't get no help with no job. I didn't get no help with no housing. I didn't get no money. I didn't even get the $200 gate money that they give individuals who did commit the crime when they come home. The county jail open and shut. What I got is what I had in my hand, which was someone else's clothes, because I got locked up in 1994, 95, and I got exonerated in 2011. Everything I had was I had skinny slacks and I don't even know. The shirt was like a tank top then. So I didn't have anything. And so, no, they didn't give me no assistance whatsoever upon my release.
Yeah, so one of the surprising things when I started learning about this a long time ago is that, you know, parolees get, you know, a lot of help. But if you get out like Obie, you get nothing. You don't even get what exonerees get, at least at that time.
Right.
Why Obie is extra special now is he's helped people now that get out of California, and in his case now, they get services because of the work that he's done. So he's worked so that people aren't released like him anymore, at least in our state.
Yes,
so he's done a lot for California. We'll learn about that at the end, because I kind of set up the course as a progression from the beginning of a case and then at the end on what happens when they get out. And we're getting a really good exposure on, you know, we can see in how he's talking and the tears that he has. He's been out for a long time. He still has obviously emotional toll. What he had help immediately when he gets out. We'll talk about if people can get compensated by the state and how hard it is in California. He talked about Maurice Caldwell. I went to his compensation hearing, and it's an extremely difficult process in this state, and he was not compensated.
Right.
When I said Obie was somewhat lucky, is that he was able to sue and he was able to get money that way. And then I think eventually you did get money from the state as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So he was able to get both, but it took years. When you first get out, you have nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. It took up to 5 years. So the state of California, in effect, not only they took 22 years of my life. With being in and out of the court, 22 years of my life. Again, I was 19 years old, and I'm all, you know, I like to ask people, like, you know, just think about that. Like, how old are you now? And can you imagine 19 years of your life just ripped out? Like, that's not there. And then to be thrown back out into a world where, you know, like, this is happening. Look at technology. Look at all of the stuff that can happen now. Like, everything that you guys and gals has had an opportunity to grow up with, I had no exposure to whatsoever. And so when I walked out of the door, technology smacked me in the face. I had at least a month, 2 months before I even got used to the phone. Like, I was trying to take a picture. I was like, all right, hold on, let me get this picture. And I hit the off button. I literally thought my phone was broke. I was like, we need to go back and tell them, like, I need to get on the phone because it keeps shutting off every time I take a picture. And they were like, look, well, what button are you hitting? I'm like, I'm hitting the button right there. Like, no, that's the home button. It cuts it off. You got to hit this. And I'm like, man, like, so, but, you know, and it's still, so you have not only the technology issues that I have, but also having to put an application in online, having to work. Everything now is online. Like, and so I can't walk to a place now and put an application in and wait to hear back from somebody. It doesn't work that way no more. And so that's what happens, because I was gone for 17. So it's like, what do I do now? But what do I do is never give up. That's my what do I do. Your Honor who exonerated me, Kevin Filer, out of Compton Court, told me that. He said to me at 37 years old, walking out of the penitentiary, getting free, he said, look, you know, you're still a young man and you still have a lot in front of you. And he told me to never, ever give up, to go out there and do great things and to never give up. And that's what I've been doing. I'm not giving up. And my not giving up has to do with, you know, you cannot stop bad things from happening, but what you can do is make the people aware that it is happening, and so that they can protect themselves from those things. And we all have to protect ourselves from being framed and put in prison. Even college law students. I'd say that because Gloria Killing was a law student, going to college, getting her education, and was put in prison falsely and spent 17 years in prison. So it happens on a broad perspective, and we need to be aware of that, and not only aware of it, but concerned enough to where we do something about
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Did you plan to go back to school, or are some schools offered you scholarships?
Well, no school has offered me a scholarship. I wish, but I did go back to school. I absolutely am a lover of psychology, and so I wanted to get my psychology degree, and so I went back. I was going to Victor Valley Community College in Victorville, California, and I was able to get 2 really good semesters in, and did really great. Got A's in both semesters. I really did really great on both of them, but I haven't finished my college yet. I haven't finished college yet. After all of those things, is like when I walked out of the door, I wanted to figure everything out. I got a job. I finally got a job after a year of being home. But that didn't work out. The anxiety of being, just that I wasn't used to being around people like that in free will. And I was working in the warehouse. I was working in a warehouse where it was a really competitive, you got to get your job done. Everybody's moving around real fast. I wasn't ready for it. And so I stopped, and I ended up going to school for a year and a half. And then the civil complaint and all of those things came to a head. I was still going back and forth to court as far as that. And so I haven't finished my college yet.
They apologize to you for falsely accusing you of whatever crime they thought you did? Wow.
My evidentiary hearing was recorded, and sometimes I go back and I look at it, and I just trip on my public defender because he had every opportunity to do that. Yeah. They called him back, and he had every opportunity to do that. And even knowing now, representing all of the stuff he got in his face, saying, hey, look, well, we do know that the prosecutors kept this from you, and we do know that they didn't give you this over here. And we know that all of that stuff affected your investigation. That affected your whatever little investigation that you did do. But, Patrick didn't do it. The detective, I just don't anticipate them doing it. I love restorative justice, and I will wish and hope for the opportunity, in other words, to have a sit down and talk with them. Patrick, even the detective, the judge, all of them. But it's been you and everyone else that has apologized to me for what the state of California has done. And, I have come to accept that apology, where when I first came home, I didn't want it from you. I didn't want it from nobody but them. And it was it's another exoneree by the name of Rick Walker who told me, he said, bruh, you remember on that docket in court, it said Obie Anthony versus the people of Los Angeles. And so he told me to accept those apologies. And when they apologize to you, accept it. And when they ask what could they do, you give them something to do. You tell them to do this. Talk about this in class. Mention this. Advocate. Check out our website. Do these type of things. And so my apology has come from my people. But the system who has done these things to me has not stepped up to the plate.
I have a question. Did the manager that made like the false claim or whatever and saying that he recognized you in his dream, did he ever face repercussions for that?
No, he did not. And actually, during the course of what we proved through my exoneration is that the star witness was the actual killer. Oh. Not only through from the trajectory of the bullet, but also through testimony. And also we had evidence that when the Vice had raided the building, that not only did they take a gun out of there that miraculously came up missing or gone, but more doing my, civil complaint, it was a reporter by the name of Miles Crowan who worked with the Los Angeles, LA Times, who was following along with them. And the next morning when the detectives went to the crime scene at that apartment complex or that building on the corner, they went up on the roof and was doing an investigation, and they handed the reporter, a shell casing that was found on the rooftop. 22 years later, the reporter gave that shell casing to my civil attorney. The civil attorney sent it to ballistics, and the ballistics came back and matched the same ballistics that was part of the crime scene. And it was our proof, not only from when we had Brooke Levin, the math expert, to come in, but from Jones' own testimony saying that I was right here and they was yelling and I did this and this happened. So, but nothing has ever happened to him. They never went back to go and reinvestigate him, but even with all of the new information. As a matter of fact, for my last hearing of Mr. Jones, he's still in Los Angeles doing his pimp thing. So.
Any last questions? We have 3 minutes.
Other than like spending time with family, like what's the first thing you kind of experienced outside of prison when you first got exonerated?
Muir Woods. My attorney had took me, I think it's in San Francisco or somewhere up there in the hills. It's a little forest they call Muir Woods. And you go out and like this camping and you go hiking and things like that. I experienced the outdoors. I got a chance, went to the beach, went up in the hills, went down, Limbar Street, the most cricketed street in the world, or whatever they call it. I got a chance to kind of, experience some of the stuff that's there, And after 17 years, your associates, I learned that I really had no friends growing up. The associates that I had growing up were no longer around and no longer there, or it just wasn't part of my mindset any longer to associate with those same sort of individuals any longer. And so that's been, that's been another of my real issues, really finding new associates and new friends, or a friend, because I had no friends then. To have some friends now, but it's just difficult because I really have real bad trust issues. So it's really difficult to really kind of, take people. We wanted to take them at their word, and it'd be like, but my wife always say, like, you're too analytical. You just want to think. You just hear them. That's all it is. There's nothing behind. You're going too far with it.
We've got one last question. Did your public defender ever apologize?
No, he did not.
No.
No, he did not.
Well, I want to really, from all of us, for me, for certain, thank you so much for coming the first day of class in general, but just sharing. Obviously, we know it is difficult and we can see it, and you're being so genuine and open, and we really appreciate it. And, of course I do. Thank you so much for conveying to them why this is so important to understand. Like, I'm in a criminology department, and so some of these people might be, lawyers and police officers and who knows, and so this might hopefully stick with them for a long time, and at least kind of keep that in mind as they go about their futures. But like I said, I definitely want to have you back at the end. You can be the beginning and then see what happens to them at the end, and hopefully think that'll be a nice experience. And of course, to have somebody from California too, even though you're not here now, I thought was important. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much. Everybody says thank you in the chat too.
Yeah, I see everybody's thank you. I really
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
you as well.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, just keep making her proud, make yourselves proud,
Thank you.
and let her get some of it. You guys be blessed.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Sure.
Bye.